Hi everybody and welcome back to part 1 of 1 Year of Drawing, my year-long progress series. Hopefully by the end of this I will be a pretty decent drawer. So this past week I was working on my primitives and working with just basic three-dimensional objects such as prisms, cubes, cylinders, and trying to get their perspective to look correct using 1 and 2 point perspective. So what we have here is everything that I did for this past week related to this. So we'll start off at the top and I'll just go through everything. So up here at the top I have a few different cubes. This first, second, and third one here were all made using 2 points perspective. So I have my 2 vanishing points here. You can see some of the rough lines that I made while making them. And then this one here, I actually only used 1 point, and it's a cube with a cylinder in the middle. Now this is something that I'm going to come back and kind of review again later on in regards to the cylinder, because there are a few different things I want to talk about later on. But for right now, there's that one. Next I moved on to this bigger area here where you can kind of imagine it as this is the back corner of a room and you're kind of staring directly at it. And these objects here are like different furniture with a window up here. Now, I don't think anybody has any furniture in their house that looks like a triangular prism, but it's just kind of what I went with. As you can see here, I kind of made a back wall of the room, and then with the point in the middle that I figured out by drawing the diagonals, I then branched out from that point to make this line here, which is the meeting point between this wall and the floor, and then this line over here, which is the meeting point between this wall and the floor. Then from those, I just used a basic 1 point perspective to create these different objects. Now, as I'm going back and looking at this on my computer after scanning it in, not just on regular paper, I can see that some of these lines, while they looked parallel, just looking at it on paper, definitely now with it straight at me, I can see that, for example, this line here and this line are not parallel. The window up here was a little tricky to draw. Well, not really tricky, but it doesn't really look right, in my opinion. So I'm not really sure if there's something that I need to work on, or if it was just kind of like the weird angle on it, because there's kind of like, I tried making a lip that came out here, and then that lip kind of vanishes on this side, but it does that even though I followed the line that extends from my vanishing point. I think it's just that it's too high, too close to the horizon that my vanishing point is sitting on, which kind of adds to the difficulty of seeing the lip on this side. I can actually use my line tool here and create the line there. So, see, I'm not really sure. I think it's just the angle. Their perspective looks kind of strange with how it's positioned. Moving on from that, we have these over here. I made this one using 2 point and this one just using 1 point. This one here is a little strange to me. It just looks like the angles of these faces are maybe too intense. I think it's mostly just its positioning in the space that I created, and then the result due to the 2 point perspective. Maybe for an object like this where it's like a lot closer to one of the points when using 2 point, it's best to just not use the second point and instead just focus on the 1 point. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because this looks a lot more natural than this does. This is more accurate when using 2 point because it follows the rules of the 2 point, where the sides of the object are traveling back to the vanishing point, but it just doesn't look natural. So what I'm thinking is that if it's really close to the vertical of the vanishing point, then it's best to just use the 1 point instead. So that's kind of what I'm taking away from this up here. That might be right, that might not be right, but that's kind of what I'm going to lean more towards this over here on this side than this. So moving on, I've got another stick of butter just flying at you. Nothing too crazy. This is a really big stick of butter coming at you, except on this one, I did something a little different where I was curious to see if you could, instead of using a horizon, if you could instead use a vertical, and it works. It was just kind of an experiment. I was curious to see if I could use it or if it would turn out weird. So moving on to some of these over here, I have just a few more. This one's using 2 point. This one here is another cube using 1 point. This one I drew a rectangular prism using 1 point, and then using the half of each of the faces, each of these two faces, the one on the back and the one closest to us, the background and the foreground, I then figured out where the point of my base, my triangle, should be, and that kind of helped me figure out like the connecting point between the back of it and the front of it. So that's kind of how I did that one there. That's how I did this one here too, with the horizontal bisector in the back, bisector there, and then the connecting those two that way to get that line across the top. And then from there I moved on to, I tried to do another cylinder. I'm not really sure if this would be called a cylinder since it's got kind of an oval base. I don't like this one. I don't think it looks right. There's something about it that just looks bad. It doesn't look natural. There's just something about it. I'm thinking it's because I didn't do kind of like the half point to the half point on each of these faces. So if I kind of sketch that out real quick, there's that half, and there's that half. So connecting the half points of each face kind of creates this diamond along the base of our rectangle, our rectangular prism. And then by doing that, you can figure out where your oval needs to go around the outside. Since this side is closer to us, this side should probably come out a little more, where it's more like that. This one back here should probably come out a little more like that. Then the one on the back should probably look something like this. And I think this one here is pretty okay. Kind of like that. I don't know, it still looks a little weird to me. I'm gonna have to practice more with that, with doing the halves of each side. You know, it could be because my halves are off, where I've estimated the half should be. By messing that up, it's then messing the next step up, where I'm drawing the base of the cylinder. But, I don't know, like I said, I'm gonna have to practice more with that, kind of play around with it and see what I need to fix and what I can work on. Some of these got cut off near the bottom down here. I tried doing the cylinder. I tried to see if you could use 1 point perspective to make the cylinder, and you kind of can, but I also kind of improvised on this and just made my own curves. This is just another 2 point. This one is another cylinder within a cube. You can kind of tell that I tried using the like bisector thing for each side, where I tried to make the lines from half point to half point, and then using those I kind of sketched out where the base of my cylinder should go. That way it's consistent. And this one looks better than the other one. I think the other one looks a little weird just because the shape of how it's elongated and kind of an ellipse or an oval rather than a true circle. But I liked how this one turned out. I think I'm going to focus a lot on trying to create cylinders for this next week instead of just kind of winging it with whatever I wanted to make, because everything else looks pretty good, pretty okay. Like these prisms over here and these ones here. The pyramid looks okay. I did the same thing with the bisectors. So I'm going to focus more on cylinders, sketching out a prism or a cube around them as kind of the outer shell, and then creating the cylinder within it, because I feel like that makes it a lot easier to make the cylinder. And then maybe trying to look up and see if there's some different tricks for creating cylinders quickly. And I believe that's just about it for this week. To just kind of sum it up, 1 point and 2 point perspective I'm feeling pretty confident with just basic 3-dimensional objects. So over this next week I'm going to focus on cylinders, creating the cylinder within a prism to kind of give me a good jumping off point. So next week you can be expecting that. Plus whatever else I kind of work on. I'm not sure if I really spend the entire week on cylinders. I probably will, just to make sure I get a good understanding of it. I'm also debating whether or not I should start using a ruler. All of these that you can see here I did not use a ruler with. These are all free-handed lines. I'm kind of debating if I should go to the ruler because it would make it quicker in creating my prisms. That would allow me to create the cylinder quicker, so I can kind of get to what I want to work on or what I feel like I need to focus on faster. But I'm not super sure because I still do need to work on that line construction, getting straight lines that are consistent with the perspective. So I'm not really sure. I'll think about it, and I'll let you know what I decided in the next video. So yeah, that's going to be it for this week. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already to follow along. Leave a comment if you think that there's something else that I can work on, something that I could change to make these videos better. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.